So what is before you today is consideration of a resolution urging the public to continue to wear masks in indoor public settings.
Okay.
That is the title of the item.
Thank you very much.
You've already approved it as an extra.
So in the last week, we've watched our case rate and our positivity rate go up quite significantly in our county. And we, as of yesterday, our positivity rate is 11.8%, which is the highest in the state. And we have 17, just about 17 cases per 100,000, which is also the highest in the state. And this is just a time when we need to go the extra mile to protect ourselves and protect our loved ones. And all we're asking is that you consider wearing a mask when you're indoors in a public setting. And that is just the simplicity of this resolution. It is not a mandate. We're not taking this, this conversation any further. It's just, this is a time when we need to have our guard up and realize that this is a real situation that our county is dealing with. So this is just an encouraging measure, nothing more and nothing less.
Thank you very much. Any comments from the board on this? All right, let's go ahead and open it up to the public. And first one is Stephanie Pawa. This is what you've been waiting for.
Yes, thank you, supervisors. As a registered respiratory therapist, I've been working the front lines. I'm also a veteran, by the way, an Army veteran and National Guard leader. I have been working front lines since I have been a kid. And so all these people who want to give their comments about their freedoms being taken away, when I was a 17-year-old kid in abject poverty, being lined up in the military, being vaccinated for everything as I was going into Desert Storm and then eventually Desert Shield, that was freedom. I took those vaccines to make sure you have the freedoms to keep your opinions and non-medical expertise projecting it out onto the community. I gave you the freedom to do that. So let's correct that right now. That's freedom. I am watching an increased caseload of unvaccinated patients coming in. Recently, a very young person whose family also lost an aunt and an uncle. And unfortunately, anti-vaxxers are nothing new. We've had those throughout time, and they cross every political spectrum. The radical left with the radical right have been anti-vaxxers since God knows when. But there's a new breed of people coming out that they've actually had flu vaccines, they've had all their vaccines, but they're objecting to this vaccine because of whatever sensationalism or craziness that is out there has affected them. And I've had patients come in literally tell me they'd rather die of COVID than take the vaccine. And unfortunately, some of them have. Some of them have recanted at a later time. And so I don't want to digress from what Director or Supervisor Pisca has proposed, which is to wear masks. I'm just bold enough to ask people when I do see them wearing a mask in a store, especially around Lake County, and then some piece lately when I was in the Lake County court office to get my marriage certificate, a sheriff was there with a mask on that was off duty. I asked them why they didn't get you guys you didn't get the vaccine. And most of the people who are wearing masks did get the vaccine. And I'm like, so you're still wearing a mask because they know there are so many people out there in the public who are not vaccinated, who refuse to wear a mask. They're everywhere. They're the ones spreading this. Okay, they're the ones making this variant. They're going to keep kicking around new variants. And so we have to do our best to encourage A, vaccination, and B, masking, especially indoor. I get it. I don't want to wear a damn mask anymore, but unfortunately people don't want to do the right thing. They don't want to be their brother's keeper. They don't care if your mother, your kid, or your aunt die, or you. And so unfortunately, yeah, this is where we're at in this juncture. And trust me, after wearing tons of gear all day, the last thing I want to do is go into Hardisters with a darn mask. but I do it for the people, the innocent people that can't get the vaccine, or the immunocompromised patients that don't have a choice.
3 minutes.
Because even if they have the vaccine, people who are under those therapies do not get full protection.
If you can go ahead and give us your final comment.
I support this measure proposed. And for those, the Dr. Tuttle, you disappoint me. You don't work with patients. You don't work with people. And the guy that said zinc is okay, zinc
Can you
is
please
toxic at
finish
certain
your
levels.
comment?
So anything that kills the virus is going to kill you too. So let's get our facts straight. Let's go back to science. Thank you very much.
Okay, let's try and remain within the 3 minutes, please, and respect everyone else's time as well as their physiological space. Phone 4627, you're next.
Yeah, this is Tom Slade again. I didn't realize that I was out of order for public input. Anyway, very briefly, I'll get really to the point. Cases, we hear about cases. They are based, as far as I know, we found out on the PCR test. And I think you will find the PCR test isn't a test, it is a process. And I think you will find more and more that is coming out. It cannot detect COVID-19. It's well in the process of being discredited. And I'll now have more to say about that later. But the whole point is PCR tests and cases. I think that is really, the fundamentals right here. So, and again, thanks to the sheriff. But, and one last thing. Yeah, if you want to suggest people wear masks or something or anything like that, that's fine. Just no mandating. So I'm good with that. So anyway, thanks for listening.
Thank you. Next, Will Tuttle.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, okay, thank you. And yeah, I think actually that we have to, when we talk about trusting the science and we talk about what's actually happening here, as we just heard, this whole thing is a case-demic. It's based on cases. Doctors and nurses are trained, they're indoctrinated from the time they begin their training to trust the labs, right? They send things out to the lab, and the lab comes back and tells them what it is. They're not scientists. They don't know anything about science. They're taught protocols. And the labs have been told to do a PCR test. The PCR test, as I've said in prior meetings, the amplification rate is determined. And so what we're seeing, and basically is a deadly hoax, which is devastating to our community. And this case-demic is causing a tremendous amount of suffering and disease. And a lot of the people who we say, and scientists are saying, are dying with COVID, there's tremendous evidence, but the evidence is being censored that it's not COVID after all, and there are many other protocols that are helpful, like ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine and so forth, that have been used with nearly 100% success rate that have also been repressed. So this is a deadly attack on our society. And I think it's well understood that censorship historically has always been on the wrong side of truth. So when you have truth, you don't have to censor people who want to say something else. But the fact is that many doctors and scientists are being terribly censored. For example, Andy Wakefield, a very highly respected doctor in England, came out as an internist and found out that the vaccines were harming kids, and he did an article about it, and he lost his license. And now he's made a movie, which I think is very important to watch, which is about the act of 1986 that basically took away all the reliability of the corporations, the pharmaceutical industry, and now they have actually legal immunity. And this legal immunity came because the Supreme Court said that vaccines are always unsafe. They said they're inherently unsafe. That's why they have legal immunity. So to say that vaccines are safe goes against the law and it goes against science. But Paul Thomas, a doctor up in Oregon, just recently published an article showing that that the unvaccinated kids were much healthier than the vaccinated kids, and the AMA stripped away his license. So people who speak up are not allowed to speak up and tell the truth. And it's well known now that we have more deaths and more
3
injuries
minutes.
from this vaccine than we've had from any others ever. It's very dangerous.
Please go ahead and finish with your final comment.
We have to be aware of that, and also, and I'll just stop here, but the masks have not been shown to be effective because viruses are much smaller than the masks. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, we have Julie Colfax.
I apologize. I was not raising my hand.
Nope, so no comment on this item.
Comment, my apologies.
No worries. I see no more hands in the Zoom room. Are there anyone in the boardroom? You have 3 minutes. Please step up to the microphone and give us your name.
Thank you again for your consideration, Amanda Brock. So as a medical professional, I was under the understanding that it violates HIPAA law to ask someone whether or not they got vaccinated and why. The variants that we were talking about, as she wanted to get back to the science, the woman who spoke before, variants, getting back to science, each variant of a virus is 3% different genetically than the variant that comes out before it, which means that every different mutation is still recognizable by our bodies. So if I was infected by something 3 years ago, my antibodies will still recognize the new variant and protect my body from it. In 18 years, studies have shown that these viruses are 20% genetically different and still recognizable by T cells, effectively eliminating the virus from the body. So getting back to science, what are the thresholds of the PCR cycles that your labs are telling you the cases are rising so much? I would like to know the number of the thresholds. It's a great day for independent, free-minded thinkers with functional souls to consider what to do when science, which is never settled, is bought and manipulated. What to do with the recent death of Kerry Mullis after stating that his PCR test can give anyone a false positive for almost anything. What to do with the billions of dollars of lawsuits that have been settled by Pfizer and Johnson & Johnson for criminal practices like bribery, experimentation on African children, toxic product recall and their links to cancers, and Pfizer and Moderna's recent lobbying of the United States government to pass bills that are eroding medical freedoms in this country. The true health freedom requires informed consent, and the truth is, the inserts on these inoculations in question say left intentionally blank, do they not? The information and science and data needed to make informed choices are being silenced, suppressed, deplatformed, and demonized. Could all these doctors that we've mentioned, Dr. Lee Merritt, former military doctor and president of the American Association of Physicians and Surgeons, Christiane Northrup, Paul Thompson, all of those mentioned, Dr. Sherry Tenpenny, Joseph Mercola, Judy Mikovits, and myriad others, be mistakenly blowing the whistle on this experimental gene therapy being used as a bioweapon, causing blood clots and myelitis, that is now being put on the labels? I'm going to get past that because I already talked about. And why else would all these talks about maintaining healthy immune systems be silenced when you all are being encouraged to line our children up for shots made of PEG, SM102, aborted fetal and primate cells, squalane, aluminum, formaldehyde, and genetic coding that's been shown to program for antibody-dependent enhancement? These are recipes for sterility and cytokine storms. Ivermectin, remdesivir, hydroxychloroquine with zinc and high-dose vitamin C, sumarin and vitamin D, and even 3% hydrogen peroxide nebulizers are recipes for health and cures. If 40 to 80,000% of Americans die of the flu each year, how many died in Lake County in 2019? I would like to know. And if 500,000 were said to have died Americans with COVID-19 last year in America, how many of those deaths were with but caused by cancer, fatal accidents, and other pre-existing conditions?
And your 3 minutes are up.
And you want to offer this to Lake County students. So where were you when Gates was selling the antivirus software for the virus he designed for Microsoft? When he bought and influenced the World Health Organization to use I'm finishing up, to turn it into a global shutdown program. So when Fauci was exposed for blundering the HIV and AIDS response, I was raised by a Princeton and NYU graduated vascular surgeon and a labor and delivery nurse whose grandparents were respectively Holocaust refugees and descendants of victims of Columbus's tyranny in the very first site of slavery and genocide in America. And I want you to know that I won't rest until the coercion and brainwashing and compliant conformity are turned over into courage, healing, and joyous freedom. So I encourage you to remove medical tyranny from the schools so that our children remember you as their children's heroes.
Your respect for the microphone of the public's mic is not appreciated. Please, everyone needs their due time. I am giving everyone the same amount of time. To go further than that is rude and disrespectful. Do not appreciate that. I also let the conversation be so much wider than just recommending that people mask up for their safety. I think that what we should all do, no matter what, every day of our lives, whether it's driving, whether it's hanging out in the park, whether it's playing with or raising our children, or just being a part of the community, is do everything we can to keep everyone safe. There is no mandate being offered. We're not talking about vaccination. I have allowed the conversation to be a lot broader than the narrow scope of this resolution before you. I do want to give a little bit of opportunity. There is the resolution, I believe. Is that correct? The resolution is available both in the box where the agenda is and on the table, typically the press table. If anybody, if anybody needs time to look at it, we can read it out loud right now to make sure that the entirety of it is heard by all. I actually, now that I've said that, I think we need to do that because there's no way for the people in the Zoom room to be able to access that. So Supervisor Pyska, since you brought this item to us, if you would please, and I'm going to close public comment. Is there any further public comment before I do so? Okay, one more. Oh. Did you have a public comment, sir, or are you just looking to read? Looking to read. Okay, thank you very much. So Supervisor Pyska, if you would please read the resolution.
A resolution urging the public to continue wearing masks in indoor settings. Whereas on March 19th, 2020, the governor of the state of California issued Executive Order N3320, ordering all individuals living in the state of California to stay home at their place of residence except to obtain or perform essential services. Subsequent orders set forth a staged process for allowing more business operations to begin with appropriate health measures to reduce the inherent risk, to reduce the risk inherent in increased activities during this pandemic. And whereas since that time, the residents of the state of California have been subject to numerous executive orders designed to protect the public in response to an ever-changing landscape created by COVID-19, including but not limited to the extent of community transmission, the strain on health resources, and other epidemiological indicators. And whereas in June of this year, the California Department of Public Health, citing the efficacy of COVID-19 vaccines, issued guidance for the use of face coverings. Effective June 15th, 2021, which provides that face masks are not required for fully vaccinated individuals except under narrowly prescribed circumstances. And whereas this board has very recently become aware that Lake County has experienced a significant increase in COVID-19 cases, and whereas the Lake County presently has the highest rate of COVID-19 cases per 100,000 in the state, with a positivity rate of almost 3 times the state positivity rate. And whereas wearing a face mask has been found to be an effective method of protecting against the transmission of COVID-19. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the County Board of Supervisors hereby finds and declares the following. The Board of Supervisors finds that due to the significant increase in COVID-19 cases and a current positivity rate of 3 times the state rate, the public should be strongly encouraged to wear face masks whenever indoors in public settings. The Board of Supervisors recommends wearing face masks as a precautionary measure to all residents and visitors to Lake County, regardless of whether such resident or visitor has been vaccinated against the COVID-19 virus. This resolution was passed and adopted by the Board of Supervisors, the County of Lake, State of California, at a regular meeting thereof on, let's see, on blank.
And those blanks would be filled in if approved. Thank you very much for reading that to the public. I think it was important for them to hear word for word what was on there, especially for those who may not be able to read it, who don't have access to it here in the boardroom. So we closed public comment. Want to check in with my colleagues. Any further comments before we take action?
Sure. I just want to say that we have a high level of transmission in our county, and half of our population is vaccinated. Of everything that we've learned this year, we know that masking works, and so I just want to have everybody make that consideration to protect themselves and their loved ones.
Supervisor Crandall, did you have a comment?
Yes, you brought up going on beyond the scope of the discussion, and I'm sorry, I'm going to kind of do that here. Last week, there was a statement about genocide. This week, there's a statement about censorship. I am a survivor. I'm a descendant of a survivor of a genocide that took place at Badinapati, 1850, May 15th. And those people, my ancestors, didn't have a voice. They were censored all the way up until the 50s or 60s, if not the 80s. So when people throw around these words like censored and genocide and all these other things, it gets quite annoying. So privileged people using these words, it's trite. That's all I have to say.
Thank you for your comment. Supervisor Scott.
I just want to thank Supervisor Pyska for bringing this to the board today. I think as leaders in our community, we need to be leading by example. It's been a really rough year and a half. I'm glad that you brought it as urging, because we're never going to get people that don't want to comply. But just letting the community know this is the best thing to do to protect yourself and your community, and that's what we need to be doing. I know for myself, I traveled this weekend, so I didn't feel comfortable sitting with the rest of you, just in case I did bring something back. And that's what we need to be doing, is protecting people around us. I mean, what happened to that? Where have we gone in a community that we are so selfish, that it's just me, and we're not thinking about everyone else? So I definitely will support this.
Thank you very much. Supervisor Simon.
Yeah, the same. I appreciate all the comments from the board. I appreciate the comments from the community too. But, you know, as we've said, the pandemic, we are still in it. We are still need to be encouraged, just like we're doing, to do everything you can to do your part. You know, if you're not going to get vaccinated, then please wear those face masks. And I fully support this. And I want to thank Jessica for bringing it and being preemptive, because what we're looking to do, obviously, is we are open. We want to stay open. We want to keep it as safe as possible while we're doing that. And I think this is just a preemptive measure, and I completely support it. So thank you. And I will vote yes.
You have anything to say?
Usually I'm the one that says something. I'll go ahead and keep quiet. Words have already been said that mimic my thoughts, so.
Okay, so is the...
It's a resolution, right?
Oh, yes, I offer the resolution.
The resolution has been offered by Supervisor Pyska. Johanna, roll call, please.
Okay, Supervisor Simon,
Yes.
Supervisor Crandall,
Aye.
Supervisor Scott,
Aye.
Supervisor Pyska,
Yes.
and Supervisor Sabatier.
Aye.